Peru, and now invite the distinguished representative of Chile to take the floor.
Señor Presidente.
Mr. President, allow me to begin by congratulating the delegation of Cuba, headed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Bruno Rodriguez. I also wish to express my gratitude for the presentation of draft resolution A/78/L.5 on the necessity of ending the economic, commercial, and financial embargo imposed by the United States of America against Cuba. In previous years, this resolution has enjoyed the support of the majority of the United Nations member states. Chile is committed to effective multilateralism and, as such, reaffirms its staunch support for the purposes and principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter and international law. These principles include that of sovereign equality of states, non-intervention and non-interference in internal affairs, and the freedom of international commerce and navigation. For more than 30 years in a row, the General Assembly has been adopting by an overwhelming majority resolutions which call for an end to the economic, commercial, and financial embargo imposed by the United States. Chile wishes to reaffirm its conviction that the implementation of unilateral coercive measures runs counter to international law. Chile does not agree with the imposition of unilateral sanctions of any kind. The only legitimate sanctions are those adopted by the Security Council in the exercise of its authority for the maintenance of international peace and security in accordance with Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter. Mr. President, the embargo has created and continues to create shortages, hardship and suffering for all of the Cuban people. It stymies and erodes economic and social progress and hinders the fulfillment of development goals, including of the Sustainable Development Goals. Consequently, we lament the fact that the embargo imposed unilaterally against Cuba that has remained in force for more than half a century now is still today in force. With that in mind, the Office of the Resident Coordinator System of the United Nations for Operational Activities in Furtherance of Cuba's Development, in its report of the 18th of April 2023, indicated that, and here I quote, the exclusion of Cuba from international financial institutions may constitute its most significant obstacle, hindering its development and hindering the achievement of Agenda 2030 goals. Moreover, and in accordance with the United Nations Development Programme report dated the 29th of March 2023, the embargo is having an impact on the most vulnerable groups of the population and on human development in general. According to official estimates, the direct and indirect losses that the blockade on the Cuban economy has inflicted since the beginning of 1960, between 1960 and 2022, stand at some $154 billion in current prices. Chile is staunchly convinced that it is only through direct dialogue and using multilateral mechanisms and international law that it will be possible to, and is possible indeed, to settle differences between states. With this in mind, we reaffirm the need to put an end to the blockade on Cuba, as well as to the implementation of extraterritorial measures associated with this policy. We must also end Cuba's inclusion on the list of countries that supposedly sponsor terrorism. The listing there exacerbates the impacts of the blockade. Mr. President, it has clearly emerged over the last 60 years of the implementation of coercive measures on unilateral coercive measures against Cuba, it's become clear that the Cuban people can still survive thanks to their dignity, perseverance, and hope. The economic embargo is an anachronism from a bygone age and must be ended now once and for all. Chile will vote in favor of the draft resolution being presented once again as an expression of its belief in commitment to the Cuban people. Thank you.
I should like to thank the